Hello and welcome to the video Spring Boot connect to PostgreSQL Database Server with me, Nam Amin from code.java.net. In this video, I'm going to guide you how to write Java code that connects to PostgreSQL Database Server in a Spring Boot application with JDBcTemplate and with Spring Data JPA and Hibernate framework. And I suppose that you are using the following software programs: Java Development Kit, JDK, Spring Tool, SUI IDE, STS, PostgreSQL Server, and PgAdmin tool. In order to have a Spring Boot application connect to PostgreSQL Database Server, you need to follow these configuration steps. First, you need to declare some required dependencies. If you want to use JDBC template, so declare the dependency for Spring Boot JDBC. In case you want to use Spring Data JPA, so declare the dependency for Spring Data JPA. And the most important dependency is the PostgreSQL JDBC driver that allows Java applications connect to PostgreSQL server. And then you need to specify data source properties such as JDBC URL, username, and password. This is PgAdmin, a web tool that allows us to connect and manage PostgreSQL databases. It is something like the popular tool PSPAdmin. And I'm going to connect to a local instance of PostgreSQL database server. So I connect server here, provide password for the user Postgres. Okay. Okay, you see, so I have connected to a PostgreSQL database server, as you can see here. And under the databases here, I have a database show me here, schemas, and I have a table here, as you can see, table students here with the columns ID, email, and name. And let me select all rows from this table. All rows. Here you can see there's only one row in this table. Email Ravi Kumar, name Ravi Kumar. And in the next few minutes, I will show you how to code a Spring Boot project that connects to this PostgreSQL database server, and then insert a new row into this students table, and also retrieve all rows from this table. And this is a Spring Boot tools GUI IDE, and now I'm going to create a new Spring Boot starter project that connects to a PostgreSQL database server using JDBcTemplate. So go to menu file, new Spring starter project here. Enter the project name as Spring JDBC template to PostgreSQL. Java version 8, project type Maven, description demo connecting to PostgreSQL with JDBC template. Click next. And for using JDBC template, we need to choose the dependencies JDBC API here. And for PostgreSQL JDBC driver, we need to choose this dependency PostgreSQL driver here. So we need to use these two dependencies, JDBC API and PostgreSQL driver for the project. And click finish. Okay, the project has been created, and you can see open the Maven project file form.xml here, and you can see the declaration of the dependencies for Spring Boot starter JDBC here, and PostgreSQL JDBC driver here, and also Spring Boot starter test is included by default. And under the Maven dependency section here, you can see the jar files for Spring Boot, Starter, JDBC, and PostgreSQL JDBC driver here. And this is a generated main class here. And let me update it to run this Spring Boot application in command line as a console application. As you can see, the annotation Spring Boot application here, and implements command line runner. And implement the run method here, and we will put our code here in the run method. And next we need to open the Spring Boot application configuration file, the application.properties file here, to specify some data source properties for the database connection information. So the first property we need to specify is a JDBC URL. So the property name is spring.datasource.url. And for PostgreSQL, we need to use this JDBC URL, JDBC : PostgreSQL : // and then the host name of the database server, because we are going to connect locally to a local instance of a PostgreSQL database server, so the host name is a localhost, and the default port number of PostgreSQL is 5432, and then slash, and the database name is shopme. As you can see in the PgAdmin tool, I have the database shopme here. And then the next property is the username of a credential in a PostgreSQL database server. This is a default username when you install PostgreSQL database server, and the password is password here. Password is a password you specified when you installing PostgreSQL database server. That's it. We need to use these three data source properties to connect to the database. And then in the main class here, we can declare a reference to the JDBC template interface, JDBC template class here, JDBC template, and have Spring Framework authorize this field. So at runtime, Spring Framework we create an instance of JDBC template with given data source properties here, and then we can use the APIs of JDBC template to connect to execute SQL statements. And in this program, we execute a SQL insert statement to the students table. The students table here, as you can see, students table here, and the SQL insert statement is insert into students for the two columns, name and email. Values, name is nam@me, and email is nam@codejava.net. And then you can use the JDBC template API, call the method update for the given SQL statement. So you can see with JDBC template API, it's very easy to work with a database. You just create a SQL statement and invoke the method, and Spring Framework JDBC API, we make the connection handles transaction disconnect from the database automatically behind the scenes. So we just focus on writing the business code. Okay, this update method returns an integer number indicating the number of rows affected by the query, just like the blend JDBC API. So here we check if rows greater than 0, then we can be sure that a new row has been inserted. A new row has been inserted. That's it, and you don't have to write code to handle exception or disconnect from the server. Okay, now before running that Spring Boot application, let's refresh the content of the students table in the database. You see, currently there's only one row. Yeah. Now let me run this Spring Boot application. Run as Java application. And you can see it prints a new row has been inserted. Perfect, right? That means this command line Spring Boot application has connected to PostgreSQL Database Server successfully and then executed the SQL Insert statement. Now let me check the database and run the select SQL statement again. And you can see now there are two rows with the second row is for the student name Namhabing here, and the email, as you can see here, exactly what we specify in the code here. And that's basically how to connect to PostgreSQL Database Server in a Spring Boot application. First, make sure that in the project you have the dependencies for Spring Boot Starter JDBC and PostgreSQL JDBC driver. And then you need to declare some data source properties like URL, username, password, and then in the sim list case you can use JdbcTemplate and then execute a SQL statement like this. And to learn more, you can explore the APIs provided by the JDBcTemplate class here. There are various methods which you can use to work with the database. Here you see many methods. Now I'm going to show you how to create a second Spring Boot project in which we will use Spring Data JPA and Hibernate to connect to work with PostgreSQL Database Server. So create a new Spring Starter project here. Enter the project name as Spring Data JPA to PostgreSQL. Demo connecting to PostgreSQL with Spring Data JPA and Hibernate framework, because Spring Data JPA comes with Hibernate framework by default. And click next. And we need to choose the dependencies Spring Data JPA and PostgreSQL driver here. And click finish. And here we got the project created here. This is a Maven project file, and you can see the dependencies Spring Boot Starter Data JPA PostgreSQL JDBC driver. And you can see the jar files for Spring Boot Starter Data JPA here. And you can see the jar files for Hibernate framework here. Hibernate core here. Because Spring Data JPA comes with Hibernate framework by default. And PostgreSQL JDBC driver here. That's enough to code a Spring Boot application that connects to PostgreSQL Database Server. and this is a main class, and I want to run it as a command line console program. So have this main class implements the command line runner interface provided by Spring Boot, and override the run method, and we will put the code in the run method here, and then we need to specify some data source properties. So Spring Data JPA, we know the connection information about the database. Spring data source and URL is the JDBC URL. JDBC PostgreSQL // and then the host name and the port number 5432 before port number of PostgreSQL, and then the database name is shopme, and then the username and password. Username Postgres and password. So at least you need to specify these three properties. And then to use Spring Data JPA, you need to create an entity class to map with the table in the database. So I create a student class here, and we need to use the annotation entity and table to specify the table name, which is students. As you can see, the table name is students here, and then we need to declare the fields that are corresponding to the columns in this table: ID, email, and name. Private integer ID, string name, and email is also string here. And for the ID field that maps to the primary key column in the database, so we need to use this annotation ID and generated value with the strategy is identity to tell Hibernate framework that the values of this field are automatically generated by the database. And all these fields have a same name as the column names in the table here, so we don't need to use any other annotations. And then we need to generate getters and setters for this entity class. Select all, generate, and also generate the code for the toString method. Okay, so that's it for the entity class. And then we need to declare an interface as a repository. So create a new interface here. Name is student repository, and have this interface extends the JPA repository interface and providing the type of the entity class is student here, and the type of the ID field in the entity class is integer. As you can see, integer here. That's it for the repository interface. And then in the main program here, we can declare a reference to the repository. Private student repository student repo, and have Spring framework Spring Data JPA automatically inject an instance of an implementation of student repository into this class. So we use the auto-while annotation, and in the run method we can use the student repo method actually here. For example, I want to retrieve all the students from the database, so I can use the find all method here. This method returns a collection of student objects from the database here, and then we can use the for each method in this collection with the method reference to the system.out.println method to bring the detail of each student object in this collection. That's it. Very simple, right? And now we are ready to run this Spring Boot application with Spring Data JPA connecting to PostgreSQL Database Server and retrieve all rows from the students table. And you can see it prints two student information here, Ravi Kumar and Nam Ha Ming. Exactly what is currently in the database table students here. Perfect, right? So you can see it's also very easy to use Spring Data JPA. And this time, because we are using Spring Data JPA and Hibernate, so it prints more messages in the console view. As you can see here, Hibernate ORM here using dialect for PostgreSQL 10 here, and the Spring Data repository is initialized here. And besides the required properties, URL, username, and password, you can also specify some additional properties, for example, to show and format the SQL statements. Spring.jpa.show SQL here to show the SQL statements printed in the console. Now, let me run the application again. And you can see it prints the SQL statement here. Hibernate select columns from table student here. And to format the SQL statement, you can also specify this property spring.jpa.hibernate .properties, and the property name for Hibernate is hibernate.format underscore SQL equals true. Then Hibernate will format the SQL statement. And you can also notice that when using Spring Data JPA, the program doesn't terminate. As you can see, it is still running. So we need to manually terminate it here. Because Spring Data JPA automatically manages the database connections. So in the program, we need to exit the program explicitly. Yeah. Okay, let me run it again. And this time you should see the SQL statement formatted. Here you see the select SQL statement is formatted. Very nice, right? And I will also show you how to use another property in case you want to use another dialect class different than the default one here. You can specify this property spring.jpa.properties.hibernate.dialect and then the dialect class name of .hibernate.dialect to find out the dialect class supported available. You can check in the Hibernate core file here in the package dialect here, and you can see there are several classes for several databases, and for PostgreSQL here PostgreSQL version 8, 9, 10. So with this Hibernate version, the latest driver dialect class is PostgreSQL 10. For example, I want to use the PostgreSQL dialect version 8.1. So I specify the class name is PostgreSQL 8.1 dialect. Okay, and run the program again. Okay, successfully, and now you can see Hibernate is using the specified dialect class here, PostgreSQL 8.1 here. So these are the additional properties you can use when developing. So far you have learned how to code a couple of Spring Boot projects that connect to PostgreSQL Database Server. The first one is using a JDBcTemplate, and the second one is using Spring Data JPA with Hibernate framework. I hope you will find this video helpful. Please subscribe to help my channel, like, comment, and share this video. Thanks for watching.